Actinometry? It's just I'm not used to learning anything this way, that's all. I don't understand. Oh, yes.
Do you remember Penny Robinson from Lost in Space? The adventurous young girl who traveled the galaxy with her family? That unforgettable role was played by Angela Cartwright. But what happened to her after the cameras stopped rolling?
You can't turn on at your age, Dr. Smith, unless they made you into a younger.
Now at 72, Angela finally reveals why she walked away from Hollywood. So often we hear stories of child stars who burn out in the glare of fame, lost in scandals and heartbreak. But Angela's path was different. She wasn't a tragic tale of downfall. Hers was a quiet reinvention. Angela was born in England in 1952, but her family soon settled in the United States. The 1950s in America were painted with a strange mix of hope and unease. On the outside, life looked perfect. New houses with trimmed lawns, shiny modern appliances in every kitchen, and the arrival of television, which quickly became the centerpiece of family life. Families gathered each evening around that glowing screen, and the faces they saw soon felt like part of their household. Yet beneath this picture of comfort and happiness, the Cold War loomed in the background, and society pressed people to conform to a narrow definition of what it meant to be a good American family. Television became the loudest voice in shaping this dream, selling the idea of the flawless home, complete with the perfect parents and the perfect children. By 1957, that dream found its picture-perfect daughter. Angela Cartwright. Born in Cheshire, England in 1952, Angela moved to Los Angeles when she was still a toddler. Acting seemed to run in the family. Her sister Veronica was already working in films. But Angela carried something unique. It wasn't just her cherubic face or wide, curious eyes. She had a rare ease in front of the camera, a calmness that made her feel real in an environment where most children had to be coached or coaxed. At just 3 years old, she made her film debut as Paul Newman's daughter in the boxing drama, Somebody Up There Likes Me. Imagine that. While most children were learning their first full sentences, Angela was acting alongside a man who would become one of Hollywood's greatest legends. But this was only the beginning. Her true introduction to American audiences came a year later when she landed the role of Linda Williams, the spirited adopted daughter on The Danny Thomas Show. For 7 years, from 1957 to 1964, Angela grew up before the nation's eyes. For her, the set wasn't just a workplace. It was her school, her playground, her entire world. Danny Thomas, the show's star and creator, was known for his demanding perfectionism. Yet he developed a special bond with Angela. Unlike how many adults treated child actors at the time, Danny saw her as a fellow professional. He respected her talent, spoke to her as an equal, and guided her as if she were his own daughter. Angela later recalled how he would sit with her at the studio commissary, asking thoughtful questions about her scenes and her motivations. It wasn't just acting, it was mentorship at the highest level. One story Angela often remembered showed just how much he cared. During a scene where she needed to cry, the young actress felt overwhelmed under the watchful eyes of the crew. Instead of scolding her, Danny quietly pulled her aside, knelt down, and gently encouraged her to think of something that made her sad. With that reassurance, she found the emotion within herself. It was a defining moment, one that taught her about both the art of acting and the kindness of humanity. From age 4 to 11, this was Angela's life. While most children studied in classrooms, her school was a trailer on the studio lot. Her classmates were other young actors, and her afternoons were spent stepping into the shoes of a beloved TV daughter. She balanced schoolwork in the mornings with life under the bright lights in the afternoons, becoming not only a character on television, but also a cherished part of America's living rooms. And as the show came to a close in 1964, Angela Cartwright had already become an unforgettable piece of television history. A new chapter in Angela's journey was about to begin, one even more iconic than her earlier work. This time, she would step out of the familiar world of black and white television and into the vibrant Technicolor hills of Salzburg, Austria. In 1964, director Robert Wise was preparing a film that would soon become one of the most beloved musicals in cinema history, The Sound of Music. For it, he needed 7 young actors who could not only sing and perform, but also convincingly portray a close-knit family. At just 12 years old, Angela Cartwright was already an experienced actress. She initially auditioned for the role of Louisa, the third eldest child of the Von Trapps. But Wise saw something different in her, something quieter, sharper, more observant. Instead, he cast her as Brigida, the thoughtful fifth child, known for her blunt honesty and watchful nature. It was a perfect fit. Brigida is the one who notices everything. She teases Maria about her dress and is the first to sense the budding romance between Maria and Captain Von Trapp. Angela didn't have to act too hard. Her natural intelligence and curiosity brought the character to life. The months spent filming in the Austrian Alps created bonds that went far beyond the screen. The 7 young actors didn't just play siblings. They became like a real family. They worked, laughed, and endured long, rainy shooting days together, creating friendships that lasted for decades. Angela, though already a professional, was still very much a child, swept up in the excitement of the adventure. One of the most memorable scenes, the moment where the children and Maria tumble from a boat into the water, looked playful on camera, but behind the scenes, it was a challenge. The water was icy cold, and the youngest actress, Kim Carath, who played Little Gretel, couldn't swim. Though Julie Andrews had been told Kim would be rescued right away, chaos took over during filming. It was Heather Menzies, playing Louisa, who instinctively leapt in and pulled Kim to safety, just as a protective older sister would. Moments like that, unplanned and genuine, helped blur the lines between acting and real life, making the Von Trapp family bond feel authentic. Off camera, Angela had a secret passion. She carried her own little camera on set, capturing candid shots of her castmates between takes, the crew working tirelessly, and quiet moments no one else noticed. While the massive film cameras recorded sweeping cinematic scenes, Angela's lens documented the laughter, friendships, and small details of daily life on set. Though she couldn't have known it then, this hobby would eventually grow into a lifelong career in photography. Those black and white snapshots remain a personal diary of what it was like to help create a masterpiece. When The Sound of Music premiered, it became a worldwide sensation. It broke box office records, won 5 Academy Awards, and turned its cast into international stars. At just 13 years old, Angela Cartwright was suddenly one of the most recognizable young faces in the world. But with fame came challenges. Hollywood, always eager to label its stars, saw her only as the sweet, pigtailed Brigida Von Trapp. Yet Angela was growing up, eager to break out of that image. Instead of being typecast as the eternal girl next door, she surprised everyone by making a bold leap from the hills of Austria straight into outer space. And then came the role that would forever seal Angela Cartwright's place in television history: Lost in Space. The series aired on CBS from 1965 until 1968, and while it lasted only 3 short seasons, its legacy has endured far beyond its original run. For children of the late 60s and for those who rediscovered it in reruns throughout the 70s, it was more than just a show. It was a glimpse into the future, a time when space travel was new, daring, and filled with limitless possibilities. For Angela, stepping into the shoes of Penny Robinson meant joining a family unlike any other, one that explored not neighborhoods or cities, but galaxies. She often spoke of how the set itself felt like stepping into a dream, almost like Disneyland brought to life. Every day filled with strange new props, wild creatures, and the excitement of adventure. It was all dazzling to the audience. But behind the scenes, the work could be grueling. The costumes, for instance, were a challenge in themselves. Designed by Paul Zastupnovich, they were bold and vibrant, perfectly matching the optimism of the space age. But Angela remembered those first silver spacesuits as little more than torture devices. They were stiff, heavy, and suffocatingly hot under the studio lights, more like wearing cardboard armor than futuristic clothing. Thankfully, the designs evolved, becoming more comfortable as the series progressed. Angela found joy in the friendships she formed, particularly with Bill Mumy, who played her brother Will Robinson. The two shared a bond that lasted long after the camera stopped rolling, one of the many gifts the show gave her. And while Lost in Space didn't earn the industry's highest awards during its original run, it found something even more enduring: generational loyalty. The series became a cult favorite, inspiring a devoted fan base that kept its memory alive through conventions, reruns, and revivals. Even decades later, the show refused to fade into obscurity. A feature film in the late 1990s brought it back into the spotlight, and Netflix introduced an entirely new generation to the Robinson family with its modern reimagining. For Angela, knowing that a piece of her childhood work continues to resonate has always been deeply moving. Yet there's something bittersweet in the reflection. Lost in Space was magical, but it also captured a time now long gone. A world where both the wonder of television and the dream of space exploration felt young, untarnished, and full of promise. As the years carried Angela Cartwright beyond her childhood roles, she discovered new ways to express herself. Acting may have introduced her to the world, but it was art and photography that gave her voice a lasting depth. In Studio City, Los Angeles, she built her own creative space, a studio where her photographs and mixed media art found a home. There, she not only displayed her work, but also shared her craft with others, teaching classes and traveling to speak about the beauty she found through a lens or a paintbrush. Her artistic journey led to books as well, including Mixed Emotions and others that blended her love of imagery with her connection to film. She even transformed her photography into wearable pieces, designing clothing and jewelry that carried fragments of her vision, a way of turning personal memory into something tangible for her audience. Despite these new pursuits, Angela never turned her back on the part of her life that made her a household name. She remained loyal to her fans, attending reunions, conventions, and interviews, always speaking warmly of the Lost in Space years. She even returned to that universe with a cameo in the 1998 feature film, a subtle nod to the girl who once explored galaxies on television. Perhaps most touching of all is the bond she preserved with her co-star and lifelong friend Bill Mumy. Together they co-authored Lost and Found in Space, a book filled with personal memories, reflections, and behind-the-scenes stories that capture not just the show, but the friendships and emotions tied to it. Away from the bright lights of Hollywood, Angela Cartwright built a rich and deeply personal life. She married, raised 2 children, and continued to nurture her creative passions in ways that proved she was never bound to just one path. And yet, no matter how far she journeyed from her childhood roles, Angela always found a way to keep her past alive, not as a shadow, but as a legacy she carried proudly. Her early career is a story in itself. Few child stars can claim the resume Angela had before even entering her teenage years. After joining the Danny Thomas Show at just 4 years old, she remained on the sitcom for 7 seasons, growing up on camera as Linda Williams. It was here she honed her comedic timing and professionalism, lessons that would serve her throughout her career. In between, she appeared in guest roles across television, including Make Room for Granddaddy, and she even made her way onto the big screen in films like Somebody Up There Likes Me, 1956, opposite Paul Newman, and the family drama Something of Value, 1957, where she shared scenes with Rock Hudson and Sidney Poitier. These weren't just small credits. They were stepping stones that gave her a chance to learn from some of Hollywood's finest. And then, of course, came The Sound of Music in 1965. Cast as Brigitte von Trapp, Angela became part of a cinematic masterpiece that has remained one of the most beloved films in history. To this day, she shares that connection with fans by leading guided tours to Salzburg, Austria, revisiting the locations where she once sang and played as a child. For many, these trips are not only about reliving a favorite movie, but also about seeing that history through Angela's eyes, a deeply personal bridge between the past and present. Hot on the heels of The Sound of Music, she was cast as Penny Robinson in Lost in Space, the role that made her a television icon. From 1965 to 1968, Angela embodied the curious, adventurous daughter of the Robinson family, navigating alien worlds and uncharted galaxies. Though the show ran only 3 seasons, it never truly ended. The reruns in the 1970s reignited its popularity, and Angela remained forever linked to the show that inspired generations to dream about space exploration. Decades later, she returned for a cameo in the 1998 Lost in Space film, a touching reminder of her place in the series' history. But unlike many child stars, Angela didn't fade into obscurity after those high-profile roles. Instead, she reinvented herself. She became a celebrated artist and photographer, opening her own studio in Studio City, Los Angeles. Her photographs have been exhibited widely, and she has authored several books that combine her artistry with her Hollywood memories. Titles like Mixed Emotions, Styling the Stars, co-written with Tom McLaren, and the fan favorite Lost and Found in Space, written with her lifelong friend and co-star, Bill Mumy. Beyond books, Angela's creative spirit extends into fashion and jewelry, where she transforms her art into unique, wearable pieces. Through it all, she never distanced herself from fans. Whether attending conventions, speaking at reunions, or giving interviews, she always made space for the people who remembered her from those early days. She has often said that she values the connection, knowing that what she created on screen became a meaningful part of other people's lives. Angela Cartwright's story, then, is not just about a girl who once played Penny Robinson or Brigitte von Trapp. It's about an artist who kept evolving, who found new ways to share her gifts while never abandoning the roles that first introduced her to the world. From the bustling sets of 1950s sitcoms to the breathtaking Austrian landscapes of The Sound of Music, from intergalactic adventures on Lost in Space to the quiet reflection of a photography studio, Angela's journey has been one of transformation, resilience, and creativity.